Frank Yosa here, CEO of Ketone. Usually at my office I have a backdrop that has palm trees, but these are actual palm trees, so I really wanted to do an on-location video about the top 10 lies or misleading statements that are made by Pruvit. Now, initially you're going to think that this is a big, bashing session, and it is absolutely not. It's just clarifying some things that I hear over and over again, and sometimes even presidents will repeat things multiple times, again and again, thinking that if you say it enough times, it'll make it true, but they just aren't true and never will be true. So with Pruvit, I'm not here to bash the company or the product. Actually, quite the opposite. I've actually said for 2 to 3 years, if you are going to buy a ketone salt, the best ketone salt to get is the Pruvit Nat. I've been saying that from the beginning. It's the non-racemic version. I have a whole video on non-racemic. I've said you can actually mix the ester and the ketone salts together. Don't mix ester and MCT oil together, but the ester and the salts, work fine together. So I've actually been recommending people buy that for a couple of years, but doesn't mean that I still want to get some things clarified. And some people might say, oh, well, I don't like the company or how they do business, or that they are a multi-level marketing company. And I said, yes, but would you rather buy a good product from a bad company or a bad product from a good company? And I would rather buy a good product from a bad or not ideal company than the flip side. So it's not a bash fest on them, just some of their marketing messages, they're doing great. They're selling a tons of stuff, but part of that is being done through misleading things that then get repeated. They get altered and then repeated by their multi-level marketing, people. So let's go through the top 10. So they start off saying that their product is the only fermented ketone product on the market. Absolutely false. That's that's a lie. They know that we exist. Ketone is also fermented. One of our competitors is also fermented, so they're not the only fermented product. Now, you could say that they're the only fermented ketone salt on the market, but we just came out with a ketone, half ketone ester, half ketone salt, so that statement isn't true anyhow. But it makes for better sound clips to say, I think they even trademarked, who trademarks this, a long sentence, the world's first and only, ketone, whatever. That's just not a true statement, whether you get the trademark or not. And oftentimes when they're up on stage and cheering, rah, 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 they don't want to, put an asterisk on it, oh, except for ketonate, or oh, except for this and that. It just doesn't make for good rah, rah cheering now, does it? So they're not the only fermented ketone salt. Now here's a side note. There's 2 ways to ferment a ketone salt, and they haven't disclosed which way they're doing it. There's one way where it's technically fermented, but from a non-natural starting product. So I'd actually really like to know how they do that, but then they say, now that's proprietary. So the number 2, this one reseller or whatever they call the keto evangelist trying to multi-level marketing, sell the product, hopped on a Facebook group and started talking about how they're the only fermented, and then they said that fermented process is patented. It's just like, well, so what they do in the speech is they talked about how they're the world's first and only, and then within a sentence or two they talk about a lot of patents. So you kind of assume that the patent is on the fermented process. It's just not true. It's just not true. Very misleading, and it leads to a whole bunch of other people incorrectly making statements. Then Pruvit will say, oh, we didn't say that, and they've been mistrained. Well, you know what they're doing. So there is no patent on the process, at least that I've known, and I could be wrong. Please send me a message and I'll put it in the comments, in the YouTube comments, that minute number 4 I was wrong, and I will stand corrected, but it just doesn't exist. So number 3, they say that patent holds 9 patents on this product. Yeah, maybe technically they might. First of all, they don't hold any patents that I know of, and I can stand corrected, but they don't hold 9 patents. They might have licensed patents from other places. Now, many of these patents aren't even ketone related. So what they do is they put in other products that they find some useful benefit, maybe even no benefit, but it's still technically patented. You can buy a whole bunch of things that are patented that aren't useful, put them in the product so you can say that the whole package together has patented ingredients. Okay, but the ketone salt, the main ingredient, what we're buying, is not part of that. So number 4, proprietary formula. They can't disclose how many ketones are in their drink because of a proprietary formula and patents. Complete hogwash. The real reason that they don't disclose is because they sell a D salt while the competitors sell a non-racemic salt. And the non-racemics, they sell racemic salts, which is the D and the L form, the good and the bad form. And the racemic product will say 12.7 grams. Well, they don't want to be in this race for numbers. So they might only have 6 or 7 grams of ketone. Pruvit might only have 6 or 7 grams, and then, but then the competitor has 11.7 or 12.7, and people think, oh, well, 12 is better than 7, and they don't want to get into the number game. Also, they know that other people are going to start coming out with, non-racemic salts, and you have to set a precedence. They don't want to play the number game. They want to play the how do you feel game and what are your millimolars, in your blood game. So it's not because of proprietary formula. Now, what they do is kind of funny, is the racemic Go BHB ketone salts, 98% of the stuff on Amazon, they'll say 11.7 grams of ketone salts, beta hydroxybutyrate salts. And then the Pruvit will say something like 12.7 proprietary blend. Now, I've seen even reporters miss the details. They thought that the 12.7 was the ketones. No, it's just 12.7 of gibberish all mixed in together. Like, it's just an irrelevant number, but people look at the number, they see 11.7, they see 12.7, 12.7 is bigger. It's just all trickery. They can put in, grams and grams of taurine in there just so that that number looks bigger. I would not be surprised that they did it for 100% marketing purposes, adding extra ingredients just for the sake of having a high number. So to say that it's a proprietary ingredient, you can't tell me what's in my product, you can't tell me how many grams of BHB is in there because it's a special blend. No, especially if you say that you have the patent on that salt, then why would you care about disclosing? So it's silly. And you can find out how much salt is in there. There's one great Amazon review that breaks down, you can work backwards based on the salt content that's on there. So salt is sodium. People just think that salt is sodium, but salt is sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. And they kind of bury the magnesium and calcium under percentage of RDA, so you don't really have an exact number. But you can work backwards from there to calculate, because you're never going to add extra salt for no reason. The salt is added to offset the acid, the free acid beta hydroxybutyrate. You add a base to make it so that you can consume it. So you can work backwards and you can calculate how much ketone salts are in there. And it's approximately 7 grams of beta hydroxybutyrate, not counting the weight of the salt. The salt can weigh 10 to 15, 20% of the whole molecule. You care about the beta hydroxybutyrate side, not the sodium beta hydroxybutyrate. The weight of the sodium shouldn't be in the calculation, but many companies leave that in there. So that's it for the proprietary formula, number 4. Number 5, patent pending. I saw patent pending on their packages for years. It was hilarious. I don't see it anymore. Why? Here's the trick with patent pending. You file a patent, whatever it is, bogus, costs a couple $100, and then you can say for an entire year or a year and a half that it's patent pending. But then the moment that you have to submit the patent for actual review, for it to be published, they pull the patent. So that's a trick. You file a patent pending, so you can put patent pending on there. The moment that you have to submit it to the courts, you pull it back so that it never gets published. Whether it gets rejected or accepted, it never even gets seen by the patent office, never gets published, nothing. So those patent pendings just mean nothing. It just complete gibberish. And yeah, I considered putting patent pending on our products too, but just didn't want to play that game. So when you hear patent pending, yeah, unless you see a patent number and you can actually read what it is, and even if you do see a patent number, if it hasn't been granted, 95% of patents get rejected. So that whole patent pending thing is misleading. And the whole 9 patents, go through the patents, see them one by one, what they are. So one of the patents that this one lady on this message group, she pointed to, all it was a patent for a mix of MCT oil and ketone salts. So that was invented by Dom DiAgostino. I think Patrick Arnold was on there. There's a bunch of licensing wars, and recently the patent war was settled, and I believe Pruvit was allowed to sell this blend only in the MLM vertical. So MCT oil and ketone salts. Ironically, right now they don't even sell a blend. They used to sell a blend, but then they stopped, and then they started selling just the MCT oil by itself, and then the ketone salt by itself. Now, if they tell you to blend the two together in a conference, that might be considered patent infringement, but that's all it was the blending of these two things together. So, and there's two patents that are extensions of each other. It looks good to say two different patent numbers, but it's the same thing. It's just a blend of MCT oil and ketone salts. Honestly, it shouldn't have been granted. It is, pretty obvious. Two things have been known for 40 years to increase ketones, so if you put them together, increases ketones more. Big whoop. So trademarks. So if you look this is fun. If you look on the Pruvit packet, it'll say Keto OS NAT, and then it has the TM mark or the registered mark. But then in the nutritional facts, it says Keto Nat, all one word, and it has a TM. Well, you would assume that Pruvit owns that trademark, right? Well, they own the trademark for the Keto OS, or Keto/OS NAT. Anyone can get a trademark on a super long word with slashes and then a word tacked at the end. Okay, great. It's a trademark, so you can say you have trademarks. But if you actually look at Keto Nat with no spaces, they don't own that trademark. Who owns that trademark? Oh, NNB. NNB is a Chinese company that makes their ketone salts. Now, I'm not going to be here and say that everything from China is horrible, and there's a lot of problems with China, but they buy their product from China, and that you can even see. You can look up in the patent or trademark search. You can look to see who owns Keto Space Nat. I believe was attempted to be trademarked by Pruvit, but since it was after Keto Nat with no space, it was denied. So Keto Nat is owned by NNB, which is their supplier in China. Now they do have a exclusive contract, so they will only sell this fermented version to Pruvit. So all of this talk about exclusivity and patents, it's kind of right because they have exclusivity with this company, but it's not a patent. And it's just, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Number 7, that the drink will put you in ketosis. This person actually on the great Facebook group said, you drink this drink and you go into ketosis in 35 minutes. Then the next sentence is, the body in ketosis, the beauty is when the body is in ketosis, you are burning fat. Two isolated statements, separate, are, one could say, arguably correct. But the fact is, when you drink the drink and ketones are in your blood, you are not burning fat. Complete misunderstanding of everything. And I've told people not to buy our product when they reached out and said, oh, I want to get into ketosis faster. I want to get back in, have my ketones higher after a cheat. No, it doesn't do that. There's a problem with the word ketosis. It should be called exogenous ketosis and endogenous ketosis. And I have a full video explaining this, but endogenous is what your body makes. When your body makes ketones, when you've eaten high fat, low protein, low carbs, or you've been fasting for multiple days, your body will go to your fat reserves, burn fat to make ketones. Great, that's ketosis. This other ketosis, which is this artificial ketosis when you drink ketones, should be called exogenous ketosis because you drink the drink and your body will have ketones floating around the blood. It does not mean that it's going straight to your fat reserves and burning fat. So it's just not a truthful statement. What makes it even more confusing is scientific papers on the esters as well have used the phrase nutritional ketosis. That is so confusing. And these scientists are not marketing people, and it was just a poor choice of words. Nutritional to me, I think of as eating, bacon, eggs, a meal plan, nutritional. But no, they technically used it for consuming ketones. So it's really confusing. But when you drink exogenous ketones, ketone ester or ketone salts, you are not just sitting on your ass and ketones show up in your blood. You're not magically burning fat. Now, to go more in depth into this, would take more time. But yes, it might suppress your appetite so that you don't eat longer, and that fact that you're not eating longer might make your body decide to go to your fat reserves and burn fat over time, throughout the day. If you skip an extra 4 hours of a meal, yeah, that might help you burn fat. But the mere fact of drinking the drink and having ketones in your blood does not burn fat. Just think about it. It's just not a logical thing. It's just not an appropriate or correct statement. And so research, number 8. So they cite all of this research and scientific papers on how ketones do this, ketones do that. Almost every single one of the papers is not using that product. Does that make you ever wonder? It's not that product. And you can't just say all ketones are equal. Most of those papers are for ketone esters. And to say, oh, well, you know, they're pretty much the same. Well, one has a huge load of salt, 2 grams, 4 grams. They say, you know, 2 packets a day. Now they say at least 2 packets a day, saying, hey, go ahead, go for it, 3 or 4 packets. 10 grams of salt sometimes, that's just not the same as having 0 grams of salt. And if it did work, these companies have lots and lots of money. They would easily be able to prove these things with their product, but they don't. Why? Because it's just not the same. So don't be misled by all of these quotes and links to papers that are for ketone bodies. If it's not the product, it's just inaccurate and misleading, you know, to make those claims. So, number 9, part of their frequently asked questions is, you know, why is it so expensive for the ketone salts? And their answer is, oh, it's a patented fermented technology. Well, first of all, we figured out it's not patented. It's fermented technology. Yeah, it costs more. That's true, it costs more, but the bulk and quantity that they're buying from China is pennies on the dollar. The real reason why the product is expensive is because of the multi-level marketing. That's how multi-level marketing works. You have multiple layers of people having to get 10% here, 20% there, 40% here. I don't know the different amounts, but you have, you know, 9 or 10 people in your downline. Well, you have to feed all those people with margin. So that is why the product is super expensive. And right now there are no other fermented D salts out there. So, you know, why wouldn't you charge what the market would bear? I mean, it's a capitalism. That's what they're doing. But don't believe the BS on this whole, you know, it's super crazy to make. Another misleading statement was someone said, oh, you know, they told us ketones couldn't be made to taste good and stuff like that. They're referring to the ketone esters. Yeah, the ketone esters are exponentially worse tasting. The ketone salts, you know, no big deal. You just put in some, you know, erythritol and flavoring. It's really not that big of a deal. You can make them taste fine. We are coming out with a new product. It's half ester and half fermented ketone salt, and it's no big deal. And you dilute it on top of that, it tastes fine. Number 10. This is the last one. Top 10 lies / you know, misleading statements or marketing angles to the Pruvit ketone salts. Caffeine. Ketone salts and ester multiply caffeine significantly. So when you buy these products, buy the caffeine-free version. It's just isolate the variables here. If you like caffeine, great. Go drink some coffee and, you know, take your caffeine-free ketone salts, or just try the caffeine-free ketone salts, so you know what the ketones feel like, not the caffeine. I don't know the exact number, but maybe 2 to 3 times for some people it will multiply the caffeine, so that, you know, only the same as 1 cup of coffee feels like 3 cups of coffee because of the way the ketones deliver caffeine to the brain. So some people, the feedback is, oh my God, I feel these, it's great, I have so much energy. Yeah, that you would also have that much energy if you had, you know, 3 times more caffeine. That would save you a whole boatload of money. So go buy the caffeine-free version, and try that out and isolate the variables. If you want to add caffeine, just do that separately, because it is a very distinct and different feeling. The ketone ester or the ketone salts, the caffeine-free version, is more of a calming effect, calming, clarity, without the jitters effect. So make sure you're isolating the variables. It's just different, and it's a little bit misleading when some of their products are only sold in the caffeine version. Why? Because it probably didn't work in the caffeine-free version, and that's why they decided, hey, let's just go to market with, you know, caffeine only, so people can feel it. People like to feel things. So that's it. Hope you got at least one nugget out of it. I bet you none of you knew that the Keto Nat on the bottom was owned by NNB, a Chinese company, possibly, you know, licensed by Pruvit, so they're allowed to put it on there. But these are nuggets they don't talk about when they're at those hooray, stand on your chair events. Again, try out the product. If you're gonna try it out, try out the caffeine-free. And thanks for listening. Now I can finally have this off my chest and not have to go back and forth with, you know, pulling links and stuff to debate, you know, these sellers that hop on the Facebook groups and try to take them over selling their product. It's all been laid out. Let's see, I think I got everything. Yeah. All right, good luck.